Hello class, today I am actually here to talk about the St.Albans Raid per the request of Colin. The St.Albans Raid, or the Battle of St. Albans, some people call it, was the farthest most conflict in the Confederate, or in the Civil War. It was a handful of Confederates who had escaped custody in, I think, Ohio, I was reading. And they had moved to Canada, St. John, Canada, just north of around the Montreal area. They shacked up in a hotel claiming that they were on a sports trip. And some say there was 18 men. There was only 5 ever captured, the 5 famous ones that were captured after this event. I'll get to that. But 5 men plotted to steal money that they claimed the North owed the South for damages and reparations and stuff like that. Or essentially just to fund the Confederate Army, because at this point in 1864, the Confederate Army was in shambles. Southern money was not there anymore. They were suffering. So they thought it was a bright idea to case Vermont, of all places. This far north, away from the South, about a good 500 miles for the nearest border to the South, especially from where they were staying. So they had, rumors were that some of them had met with the, not secret, but to wooed the, at the time's governor's wife and everything, and they were making friendly, casing the area. Some say that they ended up in Burlington at one point, and just to get an idea of the lay of the land. And I gotta pull up the date, but they had decided St. Albans was the best place because it was the closest to Canada. And so they decided, they learned a bunch of banks in that area between Swanton and St. Albans. On one day, all the farmers deposited all their money to these banks, all in one day. So they, on October 19th, 1864, Confederates came down from Canada and they robbed banks. This is where it gets interesting. So they thought they were just going to burn St. Albans to the ground by they whipped up a concoction, what they call Greek fire. It was what the Greeks had used to burn the Persian armadas. It was this green liquid and everything, and as soon as you threw it, it just exploded. It was like a extreme version of a Molotov cocktail. So they got to this point. They rob all the banks and everything on October 19th, and what happens is, this is where it gets funny, they didn't account for Vermont weather, so they bomb the place. A local captain in St. Albans, on leave, I think he was injured if I remember right, on leave from the military, sees this and starts to pursue them, and they had to back off because of the fires and everything. But like I said, they didn't account for weathers. It started to downpour that day. It put out all the fires that they were going to claim to burn down St. Albans with. And so they made off with, I believe, let me pull up the exact number. I have it in front of me. $208,000 of their time, which adds up to, with inflation, is $33,000 in our time. I think that's what it was. I'm sorry, $3 million. $3,380,000 or a million. You know what I mean. They make off with it. 5 of them make it, and they get out. A bunch of them are captured at the border, and then the ones who escape are eventually caught by Canadian Mounties. So Vermont, Canada was just going to keep them because they illegally jumped the border and blah blah blah. But Vermont really rallied for these guys to be brought back to the United States to be tried, and they were. And this brings to the end the abridged, smaller version of the St. Albans Raid. It's farthest most conflict in United States history for the Civil War. Of all places, St. Albans, Vermont, and it's forever in the history books like that. You know, a couple of guys think they can rob a bank, try to burn down the city, and the Vermont Range just puts it out. It's kind of a historical joke, but I highly recommend reading about it and everything. And I'm very happy that Colin asked me to write about this or talk about this. And I really hope to read what you guys think about this. And if you have any other questions, I will be continuing reading about this, because the 5 and the 18, I'm a little confused by which story's the exact one. But as I continue to read, just continue to ask me questions. All right. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day, guys.